Hey, friends. So I wanted to share today about a concept called thinking dialectically. This is taken from DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and is explaining the D of DBT. It's the idea that two things can be true at the same time, even if they seem to be in opposition. And it's a nice antidote for those of us who have been in chronic defense states because in a defense state, we have to see only a good guy and a bad guy. It's either you're the bad guy and I'm the good guy, or I'm the bad guy and you're the good guy. That's pretty much all that the lower brain gives us access to. And if we've been in that for a really long time, then we are going to have a lot of black and white thinking, a lot of good guy, bad guy thinking. And this can be a nice way to support ourselves. So I am going to share the Interpersonal Effectiveness Handout 16 from the DBT Skills Training Manual by Marsha Linehan. I'll put a link to it in the description. This is available for free online. And it is just going to take us through what it means and how to think and act dialectically. So the first piece here is that there is always more than one side to anything that exists. So look for both sides. So it's sort of like just starting out from a place of, I'd like to set the intention to look for both sides of this. We can ask wise mind, which in DBT, wise mind is the overlap of the Venn diagram between emotion mind and rational mind. Emotion mind is like, no, everybody's against me and this is totally bad. And then rational mind might be like, nope, there's only two ways of seeing things. It's a little like Spock, sometimes people say. And then the overlap is wise mind. How could we invite in like an unconditional love perspective that sees both the emotions and the rational and then aligns us with our values. So when we ask wise mind, what am I missing if we can't see both sides? We're offering ourselves the opportunity to see like where could there be a kernel of truth hidden in the other, like our opponent's side. This can be really challenging for a lot of us, especially if we're convinced that someone's a bad guy. So we're just offering some willingness. We're asking our wise mind or unconditional love or our higher self, like, can you show me what I might be missing? Is there something that I could notice that's a kernel of truth in this? If this is really tricky for you, I recommend the work of Byron Katie, which can help us with those turnarounds and seeing the opposite. Um, the next one is let go of extremes. So if we notice that we're having a lot of like either or, always, never, that we could invite in some both and, or like sometimes, or like this seems like it's either or, but I'd like to consider how it could be both and, right? Just some willingness to change some of that language. Also, to balance opposites, to validate both sides when you disagree, to like really accept reality. This is that radical acceptance, radical acknowledgement, and to work to change. So, the dialectic in dialectical behavioral therapy is like I'm accepting what is and I'm opening up to change. So, it's like I may disagree, but I'm sure that you have a reason for holding your position, right? Making lemonade out of lemons, just like being willing to see that there may be something good, embracing confusion, entering the paradox of yes or no, or true or not true. A lot of us, because we've been raised in societies that like super prize being right or like knowing everything. Confusion is like a big sign of weakness. And so we avoid it at all cost by getting rigid and like making rules. But if we're willing to just embrace, like, I don't understand it, and that's okay, then it could be that there's paradoxes there that are just a part of the mystery. Um, playing devil's advocate, going ahead and trying it out to argue the other side can be such a challenge. My kid had to do this in school this year and he hated it because we feel like it's so wrong. How could I even try to defend it? But this can be really helpful because it can show us what little pieces we might be missing and at least help us to understand or consider understanding the other perspective. Use metaphors and storytelling. I love metaphors, you probably noticed. One of my favorite stories in this line of thinking is the story of the man who got a horse, and his neighbor said, "Oh, you got a horse, congratulations." And he said, "Maybe." And then his son was riding the horse and broke his leg, and the neighbor came over and said, "Oh my God, your son broke his leg. I'm so sorry." And he said, "Maybe." And then the next day, the recruiters came to get soldiers for the war, and they couldn't take his son because he had a broken leg. And the neighbor said, "Oh my God, you're so lucky they didn't take your son." And he said, "Maybe." And it just goes on and on from there. Okay, number two, be aware that you are connected. So this is just could seem a little woo-woo, like, oh, it's all the oneness, we are all connected. But when you actually look into science, you'll find that science really validates this, that like we actually are connected. Marshall Linehan often offers the metaphor that, or like the science, I think it's science, that if a butterfly flaps their wing, like it affects something on the other side of the globe. You can look at trees or mushrooms that have these mycelial networks. You can think about the circle of life, the food chain, how all things decompose, any of those things that help you to notice the physical connections amongst all things. And you can actually give yourself opportunity to train your reticular activating system to look for similarities instead of differences. So if you're with someone who you're like, I am so different from them, we have nothing in common, you could actually give yourself the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to try to find something that's similar amongst us. Um, and the work of Byron Katie is really good for this too. And treating others as you want them to treat you. I like this is the golden rule, which is a great one. But for those of us who have been highly codependent, I think it can be easier to say treat yourself as as you would treat others. So either version of that, just to remind us that we're all connected. Number three, embrace change. Many of you know that change is my favorite identity. It is the only constant, in my opinion, and according to a bunch of science. Um, there is no way to stop change that we are aware of on this planet. So, practicing radical acceptance of change when things don't go the way that you would prefer, um, allowing it, embracing it, practice getting used to it. So, I love this invitation to like purposefully change the route that you take, going to the grocery store or whatever, like purposefully changing how you sit or how you do your hair. Some people say like change the way that you part your hair or wear a different style of clothes just to move a piece of furniture, just to like remind your brain that change is okay, that we can handle it. The nervous system's biggest enemy is change because when it can keep things familiar and the same, then it sort of like knows the dangers, and that is evolutionarily like safer. So your nervous system will resist change, and by purposely practicing small changes, you can just give your nervous system more opportunity to see that like it's not the end of the world. Number four, this one's interesting. Change is transactional. So remember that you affect your environment and your environment affects you. So this is just the idea that like we cannot do anything in a vacuum. It's always interactive. And that change is going to affect one thing that changes affects everything else. So you can pay attention to those things that your effect on others, how they affect you, practice letting go of blame by looking for how your own and others' behaviors are caused by many interactions over time. So this is where I really love to look at ancestral patterns. You know, I ended up getting divorced, and for a long time, I just like was so critical of myself for that, like I had failed. But when I looked back at my ancestry, like there wasn't a strong history of interpersonal effectiveness. And given my personal experiences with brain injury and being neurodivergent and, you know, having being queer and not having a model for that, and also like specifically being told that that was dangerous, there was not a great reason for me to be very effective in my marriage. Um, Remind yourself that all things, including all behaviors, are caused. So it's caused somewhere, and you can go back and back and back and back and back, and you can usually find it within a generation or two. But even if you can't, you know, if we look at things like racism or oppressive governments or homophobia or, you know, anything really, if you go back far enough, you can see like, okay, yeah, there was like, you know, back before human beings, there were animals trying to like claim dominance in order to get resources in order to survive. So everything has a cause, and there's nothing that's just like happening out of thin air. Okay, so here are some just examples of some dialectics, just so that we can start to play with and think about how there can be things that are seem to be opposite, but they are both true. Okay, you can want to change and be doing the best you can, and still need to do better, try harder, and be more motivated by change. So you can be doing your best, and there still could be room to do more. You are tough and you are gentle. You could be both of those things at once. You can be independent and also want help. You can allow somebody else to be dependent and also give them help. You can want to be alone and also want to be connected to others. You can share some things with others and also keep some things private. You can be by yourself and still be connected to others. You can be with others and be lonely. You can be a misfit in one group and fit in perfectly in another group. A tulip in a rose garden can also be a tulip in a tulip garden. You can accept yourself the way you are and still want to change. That's really the main goal of dialectical behavioral therapy. You can accept others as they are and still want them to change. At times, you need both control and tolerate your emotions. You may have a valid reason for believing what you believe, and you may still be wrong or incorrect. Um, Someone may have valid reasons for wanting something from you, and you may have valid reasons for saying no. The day can be sunny and it can rain. You can be mad at somebody and also love and respect the person. You can be mad at yourself and also love and respect yourself. You can have disagreement with somebody and also be friends. You can disagree with the rules and also follow the rules. You can follow the rules. Yeah, you can agree with the rules and also not follow them. You can understand why someone is feeling or behaving in a certain way and also disagree with their behavior and ask that it be changed. So there's so many examples of this. These are also some points that, you know, we want to balance out when we're thinking about dialectics, to make sure that we're not like going too hard on when we get some rules in our head about like doing everything right or doing everything good. A lot of us on the healing journey can have that. Accepting reality and working to change it. So that's the, like, again, the main idea of DBT. Validating yourself and others and acknowledging errors. So a lot of us get scared that if we open up to validating ourselves, or taking care of ourselves or not expecting perfection of ourselves, that we're just actually going to like never change or never do anything again and end up in a pile on the floor. Balancing working and resting, doing things you need to do and doing things you want to do, working on improving yourself and accepting yourself exactly as you are, problem solving and problem acceptance, emotion regulation and emotion acceptance, mastering something on your own and asking for help, independence and dependence. That's really held nicely by the word interdependence, openness and privacy, trust and suspicion, watching and observing and participating, taking from others and giving to others, focusing on yourself and focusing on others. So, those are some nice ones to invite into your life if you'd like to have more dialectical thinking. Um, so I'm going to pause there. There's also a really nice section in the book around validation. But I just wanted to share a little bit about dialectical thinking. If you find yourself in a non-dialectical place, you make sense. A lot of us, especially those of us who have had strong um, exposure to religions can have non-dialectic thinking because it was taught to us. So, like for me, I was really taught that I needed to see everything as right and wrong, good or bad, all or nothing. And so that pops up a lot in my thinking, and I can be really gracious towards myself. Also, it's a characteristic of more neurodivergent thinking that we can tend towards being a little black and white, um, literal. If that's you, if you find yourself in those moments, you can accept that it makes sense that you are thinking non-dialectically, and there's possibility for you to be willing and open to inviting in some dialectic thinking. And if that creates more peace for you in your relationship with self, a relationship with others, and that's something that you would like, then these are some ways to explore that. Okay, lots of love.